Late to the game, unimpressive statistics, and an immediate recall for the wheels falling off, many are calling Toyota's first mainstream offering in the EV segment a total failure. But is the BZ4X truly a dud? In today's video, I'm going to try to help answer that question. The first thing I want to talk about is styling, which I know is definitely polarizing on the BZ4X, and I was also skeptical when I first saw it. It is definitely a unique design, but the more time I've spent with it, the more I really start to appreciate it. I think it's got a very modern look to it, number of design cues that are very similar to Lexus models, and I think it's overall got a really premium appearance, especially in this limited trim configuration. With the limited model, we get the premium LED headlights, which are pretty cool looking. We also get the larger premium wheels, which for me are a deal breaker. I would not get the wheels on the XLE base model, even though you get better range. I think they just completely ruin the look of the vehicle. This model is also equipped with the optional two-tone color configuration. So you'll see that the roof is black while the vehicle body is white. I think it really adds some character. One of my favorite styling cues on the BZ4X are the side rocker panels, which are pretty aggressive and give the vehicle a really athletic stance. And then I also like the split spoiler above this rear window. Very unique design, and again, just gives it that more premium appearance. So again, I know the styling on the BZ4X is definitely controversial. If you haven't seen one in person just yet, wait to pass judgment. And again, I think it's one of those vehicle designs that's really going to start to grow on people with time, especially when you start to realize some of the resemblances with the Lexus lineup. In addition to the BZ4X not offering a frunk up here like many other EVs, which is a huge benefit, giving you an additional space to store cargo, the performance and powertrain on the BZ4X is also kind of mediocre and really not that impressive when compared with other EVs. The BZ4X is available in either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive models have 201 horsepower, all-wheel drive models have 215, which translates to a 0 to 60 time of about 6 to 8 seconds. It's not particularly bad, but it's also not very good, especially when compared with other EVs that are seeing crazy fast 0 to 60 times. In addition to that, the range isn't all that impressive. We've got a range between 222 and 252 miles, depending on whether you get a front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and the XLE or limited model. So you're gonna do best with a front-wheel drive XLE model at 252. An all-wheel drive limited model like this drops down to 222, which kind of trails the pack when it comes to other vehicles in this segment. And then in addition to that, recharge rates are nothing to get too excited about either. Full recharge on a level 2 is gonna take you about 9 hours. On a DC fast charger, you're looking at about an hour to get from 0 to 80%. One area that could have been a slam dunk for Toyota, and I feel like they really dropped the ball, is the interior. There's a number of real flaws with this interior, starting with the fact that it's got kind of an unconventional layout here that is just a little bit funky and takes some getting used to. Part of that is we've got this kind of heads-up display here where rather than looking through the steering wheel, you actually look over it. And so to make that possible, you get a really small steering wheel here, which feels different, it's okay, but it's got a really dorky look to it. And while I've started to get used to this overall configuration, I don't really feel like it was necessary. I feel like I would have preferred something more traditional here. So I'm not really crazy about that. But then we've also got this center console here in the middle, which is quite large and makes you feel kind of claustrophobic in your seating position. On top of that, it is very impractical in terms of storage space. We do have a nice compartment here with some storage. Right in the middle here, unfortunately, this isn't a storage compartment, it's just for your phone, wireless charger, so I feel like it's kind of wasted space. And then below it, we've got this pass-through here with a tray that you can store things, but there's not really a good way to organize things there. You can't hide them, and they tend to kind of fall out as you're driving. And so I would have preferred that this was closed in here and that this would have opened up to that compartment. You could just kind of put things down in there. So I'm not really crazy about that layout. In addition, there's no place to store sunglasses up above here, and there's no glove box. And so it really feels like there's a lack of storage space in the vehicle. In addition, the infotainment screen is terrible. There are so many error messages. You probably have to cancel out of like 3 or 4 different error messages every time you turn the vehicle on. So that gets very old. Hopefully that will improve with over-the-air updates. And then I also feel like for this being the top end limited trim configuration, it just doesn't have a real high end feel to it. I also had a 2022 Toyota Tundra Limited, and that model, when I drove it, it felt very premium. It had kind of that wow effect to it. And I don't get that with the BZ4X. Instead, this feels like more of a mid-level offering. And there's a number of little things that I feel like they could have done better on, like the sunroof up here. There's a bar that cuts down the middle. It doesn't give you the same amount of natural light coming in. It kind of takes away from the vibe that you generally get with a panoramic sunroof, and it doesn't open either, so it's not really all that functional. And then just in general, it feels pretty ordinary other than the large screen. Pricing is probably the biggest downside of the BZ4X. Your base XLE model equipped with front-wheel drive is going to start at about $43,000, and as you move up to the higher-end limited trim configuration like this, equipped with all-wheel drive, you're looking at just over $50,000. Now, for what you're getting in terms of performance and range, it's definitely on the pricier end for this segment when compared with vehicles like the Volkswagen ID4 and the Mustang Mach-E. But where it gets really bad is that because this vehicle is built in Japan, while those other models are built here in the United States, they qualify for the $7,500 federal EV tax credit, while this vehicle doesn't. And so that really grows the gap in price between this vehicle and those models. And again, one of the main reasons that you might not want to go the route of the BZ4X. Other than these constant error messages that I get on my infotainment screen, the BZ4X is a pleasure to drive. It's got a really nice overall ride quality to it, good driving characteristics. It feels very refined. The steering's got a nice tight feel to it. And although the powertrain isn't particularly impressive in terms of that 0 to 60 time, it also doesn't really feel underpowered either. Part of that's the fact that it's an electric vehicle, so it still has that instant torque. And although 0 to 60 in 6 to 8 seconds isn't that impressive for an EV vehicle, it's not bad for a gas vehicle either. And so I wouldn't really say there's ever been a time where I felt like the BZ4X didn't have enough power for my driving needs. I've always felt like it's been adequate. It doesn't give you that thrill factor that you get with other EVs, but that's not going to matter to most people for day-to-day driving. It's still a very nice day-to-day driver, just in terms of the ride being very refined, having a really nice overall characteristic to it, and just being a very comfortable vehicle. So the BZ4X is definitely a mixed bag with some strengths and also some real weaknesses. I would say it's definitely not a vehicle that Toyota knocked out of the park, but it also has some real good qualities. And despite its downsides, it's a vehicle that I think I'll probably hang on to for at least a few years, which is saying a lot for someone like me that goes through vehicles pretty frequently. On the plus sides, I think the BZ4X is really attractive, and I know that that's controversial because it does have very polarizing styling. I was one of those people that thought it was a little bit odd looking at first, but the more time I spend with it, the more I really appreciate the look of it. If you haven't seen one in person just yet, at least give it a chance until you do see one, because I think they look a lot better in person, especially in the limited configuration. It also drives really nice. Great overall characteristics. It's very refined. And then thirdly, this is a little bit of speculation, but I'm kind of counting on the fact that this is a Toyota. It's going to be more reliable and have better resale value than other similar electric vehicles. So we'll see with time if that one stands, but given Toyota's past reputation and track record, I'm pretty hopeful in that area. As far as downsides, again, definitely some downsides. The interior being one of the biggest ones for me. I just don't like the overall look and layout from the driver's seat, a real lack of storage, and they could have done some things, especially in this limited model, to give it a more premium look and feel. So I feel like they dropped the ball, and that should have been an easy area. They could have taken much of what they've done in some of their gasoline vehicles and carried that interior over, and it would have been just fine. But instead, they felt like they had to think out of the box because this is an EV, and I feel like they dropped the ball instead. Performance is, again, another one of those areas where the BZ4X is definitely lacking. It's not particularly quick when compared with other electric vehicles, even though it's pretty adequate for day-to-day driving needs. The range is unimpressive for this segment, as well as the recharge rates, which aren't anything to get too excited about. And then thirdly, the price is a real downside because it doesn't qualify for that federal EV tax credit. it's quite overpriced when compared with other similar vehicles in this segment. So those are my thoughts on the BZ4X. Definitely some pluses, but also some minuses. Love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. For more Toyota videos, be sure to subscribe. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.